People who made an impression throughout history haven't always done their best to remain positive about global happenings. There were many infamous sea captains and sailors during the Golden Age of Piracy who set out to plunder the oceans. Anne Bonny, though, was one of these pirates and would go on to become a notoriously fearsome figure in West Indian maritime history. William Cormac, an Irish lawyer, and Mary Brennan, his maidservant, had an illegitimate daughter named Anne. Anne was born close to Cork in Ireland. William started an affair with Mary while his married wife was sick at her mother-in-law's house. They had previously tied the knot. The remainder of William's family was understandably not pleased when he attempted to pass Anne off as his daughter when she was first born. He brought his daughter to London and raised her as a lawyer's clerk, dressing as a male named Andy. It was Cormac's affluent wife who discovered the truth and cut off her husband's stipend, forcing him to start all over. William chose to go to the province of Carolina, which encompassed a sizable portion of the southeastern United States in the modern day. Along with Anne and her mother Mary, he established a family. Anne had a strange upbringing, and the thought of passing herself off as a guy would arise later in her pirate career. William looked into becoming a lawyer but had a hard time getting clients. Nevertheless, he was able to amass sufficient funds to purchase a plantation and a townhouse for his new family, thanks to his legal acumen and salesmanship abilities. In America, Anne's mother passed away when she was around 12 years old, but other than that, very little is known about her life. Following this, her infamously violent temper flared up, and at the age of 13, she allegedly stabbed a servant girl. It portended her future self. Anne, at the age of 20, wed James Bonny, a destitute sailor, in 1718. When her father-in-law learned that James intended to inherit his plantation, he became even more opposed to the union. After throwing Anne out into the street, the young couple decided to relocate to Nassau, which is located on the Bahamas' New Providence Island. The Republic of Pirates is the current name for the Nassau-based pirate colony. Pirates and privateers turned pirates formed a loose confederacy known as the Republic of Pirates. Members of the group agreed to treat each other with respect and hold leadership elections every so often. As Anne and James sought employment on the island, they encountered numerous pirates in the local watering holes. Despite Anne's disapproval, James quickly became an informant for the island governor in an effort to support his young wife financially. John Rackham, also known as Calico Jack, was a colorful calico dresser whom Anne eventually met and fell in love with. It was in 1719 that the Bahamian government granted a pardon to any pirate who turned themselves in, and Calico Jack was among them. Although James's anger at the news was understandable, Jack decided to offer him money in exchange for a divorce from Anne. Jack persuaded Anne to abscond with him to the sea after James declined. She consented, joining his gang while dressed as a male. Furthermore, the king's pardon was wholly disregarded throughout the entire affair. Sometime about 1720, Anne became pregnant and, accompanied by Jack, went to Cuba, where they had their child. We have no idea whether this youngster made it to adulthood because, tragically, no records exist regarding them, and if so, their residence. Anne joined Jack's crew as a member shortly after giving birth. She continued her life as a pirate, attacking ships in the Caribbean while masquerading as a male. At about the same time, Mary Red became the second female member of Jack's crew. Like Anne, she had been raised as a male and dressed like a man, so no one ever suspected she was Mary. She had been on board a ship that Jack had taken, and she had subsequently joined his crew. Soon after meeting, the two ladies became fast friends and, according to eyewitnesses, two of the crew's most aggressive members. With so much in common, it's no wonder they hit it off and became friends. Unfortunately, Jack started to suspect them of having an affair due to their closeness. He still believed Mary was a male. An escaped member of their crew named Dorothy Thomas would later tell him that the crew wore men's jackets and long pants and had handkerchiefs tied around their heads. This would allay his fears and reveal Mary's secret. They threatened the men with her death while brandishing machetes and pistols. Anne and Mary weren't exactly delightful company, even though they were friends. They would undoubtedly come under the scrutiny of the authorities in due course. On September 5th, 1720, Governor Woodes Rogers of the Bahamas made a proclamation. The Boston Gazette said that Calico Jack was one of 12 people who had taken the William, a 12-ton sloop. The list of victims included two women, Anne Fulford and Elias Bonny, as well as Mary Red. Not only that, but it went on to say that the whole crew was guilty of blatant piracy and several instances of violence and criminal destruction. The piratical lifestyle of the crew continued as they set sail on the William. Sir Nicholas L.W.'s, Jamaica's governor, gave Captain Jonathan Barnett orders to pursue them. 2 sloops were sent out by Barnett, the Royal Navy's Tiger, which had multiple guns and 20 sailors on board, and the Moran, which had 20 men on board and was ironically captained by a former pirate, Jean Bonnade. On or about October 31st, 1720, a gun discharged randomly while Jack's ship was at anchor near N.E. Grill. When they heard the disturbance, they decided to investigate because Bonny's ship was nearby. Word got back to Barnett, who set sail to find himself. He summoned William and told them to prove their identities at about 10 o'clock in the evening. The response was, John Rackham from Cuba. It's clear they weren't ready to confess to being pirates. Given that Calico Jack was plainly Barnett's target, the response was a little foolish. A naval word meaning to lower one's ship's flag of allegiance in a move of surrender, he yelled out to the ship to strike their colors. Someone on the sloop shouted that they would not surrender, and a swivel gun was fired at the Tiger. Barnett later testified that it was too dark to see who responded. Barnett swiftly issued a broadside command, signaling a serious response. In this situation, he aimed all of his ship's guns at the same target and fired them simultaneously. After the action crippled the William's boom arm, the crew had no option but to capitulate and acknowledge defeat. They were taken to Spanish Town, which is located on the mainland of Jamaica, and imprisoned there. Sir Nicholas L.W.'s personally presided over an admiralty court that tried Calico Jack and his 10 crew members on November 16, 1720. They presented few arguments in their defense, which led to their conviction for piracy and subsequent execution on November 28th. The court then sentenced Mary Read and Anne Bonny to death for their piracy. It was believed that Anne would have a better chance of acquittal because many of the island's planters would have known her father personally. Unfortunately, she was unsuccessful in her earlier attempt to flee. Mary and Anne both pleaded the belly or announced their pregnancy. Upon discovering a woman's pregnancy, the court would automatically postpone her sentence until after she gave birth. This seems unbelievable, but the women had to prove they were pregnant during the trial. On April 28, 1721, Mary Read was laid to rest in prison after suffering a postpartum infection, which is the most probable cause of her death. The destiny of Anne, in contrast, is somewhat more cryptic. Some have speculated that Anne may have escaped justice, as there is no record of her burial or her release. Some of Anne's ancestors asserted to have discovered materials proving her father was able to get her released from prison and transported her to Charleston, South Carolina, although the proof is weak and probably just an idealistic idea. She married Joseph Burleigh here, and it appears that she gave birth to Calico Jack's second child there. The story goes that she had 8 more children after that and died a respectable 84 years old in 1792. But this is extremely flimsy proof, and it's quite unlikely, particularly given Anne's nature. Anne probably passed away at the same time as Mary in 1721, and the burial records are either nowhere to be found or just gone. Despite the horrible truth that she was a brutal and vicious pirate, Anne was a trailblazing female pirate and an intriguing figure from the Golden Age of Piracy. In defiance of the early 18th century norms that women were expected to adhere to, she integrated herself into a male-dominated society through a mix of cross-dressing, seduction, and aggression. Anne Bonny undoubtedly had a dark impression on history, whether you love her or despise her. Make sure you don't miss any more documentaries by liking and subscribing to our channel if you liked this one.